Hi everyone, my name is Tegan and this is the kind of video I was thinking I would make normally. I was thinking that I'll try and make process videos, but I think it's time for me to look back at my origins because I call myself a self-portrait photographer, but I honestly haven't taken a self-portrait since March. So we're going to go back to the start of my Instagram account and we're going to look at my origins. Let's begin. Also, I live in a new house with other people, so I'm sorry if you can hear noise from elsewhere in the house. Also, it's about 3:30, I live on the main road now, and there's kids coming home from school and getting picked up from school. So that's just what's happening. So at the beginning of my photography career, before what's on my Instagram, I was very much a nature photographer. I took photography in GCSE, so for years 9 and 10, I pretty much just went out and I took photos of trees. And there's no evidence of that, but that's my origin, and I think it's how I started trying to take a lot of my photos in nature. I went out to shoot self-portraits in the woods a lot, and you can see, especially in my early works, they're all pretty much taken in the woods. So if we look at the very first photos of my Instagram account, these were uploaded July 2017. I think they were taken back in February. I remember it was like freezing cold and I forced my friends out in these like white shorts and white t-shirts when it was very cold. So this is the powder paint days of my art, where everything was like very colourful. I think it was very out of character because I don't remember ever having any interest in like bright, vibrant colour photography, but this is what it was. So yeah, these photos I still pretty much love to this day. Especially, I'm going to put, there's a big gap here, you can see the frog, but this is where I'm going to put what I'm talking about. I'm looking at it on my iPad screen right now, that's below that you can't see. So yeah, there's photos I still very much love to this day, which are probably some of my favourite photos I've ever taken, but I mean, this isn't really a style that I'm into now, but I still love it. This is still baby Tegan taking photos, and I love taking photos of things that I was interested in. So at the time it was nature, and I very much love my friends, so here's a lot of photos of my friends. But yeah, in the powder paint phases, this would have been, I guess, year 11 photography, where a lot of other people were also taking photos with powder paint. And I don't know who our shared inspiration was, because I don't remember ever seeing one. I just suddenly everyone had a fascination with powder paint. And that's what this is. Then we have a shoot from that summer, which was another powder paint shoot, which was some different friends, and I think this is the first and only time I've ever used like boys in my photos. I almost exclusively shot with my friends who are almost all girls. And this is more powder paint, and there's still, these were taken before I had Photoshop. I had the Photoshop app on my iPad, which is pretty much just for colour adjustments, but you can see specifically in one photo, like her arms like this shadow on this arm is jagged, and it's because I took a photo of her standing there with her hair blowing, and I took a separate photo of her one blowing the paint and tried to put it together for this photo, which I do very much love, apart from I edited it on what is basically like paint, like Microsoft Paint. Is it Microsoft Paint? But yeah, I pretty much took this photo on paint. But yeah, these powder paint photos aren't my finest work, and they're not a good representation of my current work, or even really how I developed my style. But I think it's a good starting place. Now we have the time where I discovered Brandon Woeful. Everyone is you would recognise this guy. This was, when was this? This was, I think, back in 2017, where his feed was pretty much all fairy lights, girls with like these giant like fake glasses, and it was very like pink and blue, or like cyan and magenta if we're being fancy like that. But I was obsessed with that. I wanted to be a very pretty Tumblr girl. And these are also my first self-portraits. And it was before I had a remote shutter for my camera, so you can see that one hand is like holding stuff up and the other one is reaching towards to press the button on my camera in all of them. So yeah, these, especially the close-up ones, they were taken in a pitch black room at night when I guess my parents weren't home, with a like blue post-it note over the flash to give it this blue tint. And I also had my blue hair, which I guess would have been a week or two after I had it dyed. This is also the beginning of my blue era. I did have blue hair, but it's faded right out and it looks a bit straggly. So yeah. So yeah, this was the face mask very greatly inspired by Brandon Woeful, and you can see it. But obviously my work is nowhere up to scratch with his. And also you can see in these close-ups, I have, you can't really see, but I have a lot of moles across my skin, not just on my face, just like all over my body. So, and I was very insecure about them. I was also insecure of having my face on camera because I was the massive introvert and I was always all behind the camera. So when I use myself as a model, I try to put these like little star glitter over all of my moles to cover them up, and it gives it a bit of more of a constellation vibe. But you can see that I have stubby fingers. I have no nails to place these things accurately, so it's a bit of a mess. But also it's cute. This is me, age 16, and yeah, these are my first self-portraits. I still kept this style up for another shoot with my friend. This was a time, I think it's the first time I was working like with one model, and it was like I had no idea how to direct a person, rather than like pulling up a reference photo, probably from Brandon's account, saying, hey, copy this. I'm pretty sure I was just changing the ISO setting on my camera. I didn't know how to change any other settings, like the whole aperture and shutter speed for this low lighting situation to work. So I think I'll put up the one here that shows it best. But I pretty much took all of these, I opened it on the Photoshop Express app, still didn't have Photoshop. I probably turned all the shadows in the black, like full brightness, then realised that I had a lot of grain in there, so I put like the reduced like luminance, is it called reduced luminance noise? But yeah, I put all the sliders up to smooth it out. So you can see it's better, but the face, that the skin is completely smooth, there's no detail there whatsoever. And this is also before I knew about camera raw. Because I've been interested to go back and try and redo these ideas someday. Just because I know how to use camera raw now. I know how to use my camera settings. So this would be an interesting thing to go back to and just see how I progressed and what I've actually learnt. But I mean, I don't hate them. As a series, if you see them all together, I don't mind it, but up close I can see all the flaws in there. And I can see that this is an original idea. I just ripped off Brandon. But I feel like everyone was doing that back in 2017. Okay, moving on, we are back to pictures of my face. This is the start of my pressed flower petal thing. And still I didn't have a shutter, so it was like reaching my arm out and pressing on the camera itself. And I think one of them was my profile picture forever. But yeah, I don't have much to say about these. They're very bright, very white, very colourful, and I still do love the flower petals, but it's very an aesthetic shoot thing. It's not much of a style that I could probably represent across my own work, and also I don't know how it would fit in with my current style and how that's going. But I'd like to go back to it someday, even if I don't take close-ups of my face anymore. Then we move on. Let's scroll down a little bit. So these ones on your screen, I don't know when they were taken, but they were posted October 2017. They're probably taken maybe a little before that, around that time. And it's still trying to copy the Brandon style in like a dark, spooky Halloween kind of way. And again, I don't dislike them, but I don't like them either. And also this photo right here, I mean, I kind of see it now, but when I first scrolled back to it a while ago, I was like, who is that? Why is this cheek like so defined? Like, who is she? I remember I had like a big, like kind of like a dried poppy petal stuck to my face here, and when I peeled it off, it left a red mark and it looked like I'd been hit in the face. So yeah, it was a very, I remember this shoot getting like fed up with it very quickly. I don't think it was going well at all. But at this point, I'd already done this idea 2 times before. I was fed up and I wasn't becoming Brandon, which is all I wanted back in 2017. Let's move quickly onwards. We are going into... So this is around the time where I started, this is November 2017, it's when I started college, and I was doing photography, film video and English language. So this was actually from film and video. Our first big project was to make a music video. I chose Loving Someone by 1975, and I was very inspired by projection imagery and also the kind of visuals from Taylor Swift's 1989 tour. The visuals during Clean and her Style music video, where it's very much like, I will put up some references here. But I was very inspired by that. I was inspired by the songs. So I gathered 3 friends. I put together a video of just like stock videos of like water and smoke, clouds and stuff. And I made a little music video, which I can't link below because fortunately it's been blocked in pretty much every country but 2 for copyright reasons. But this is something I'm quite proud of. It was edited in pretty much Windows Movie Maker. So it's the kind of thing like, yeah, I'd love to go back and remake this someday with a similar idea, probably a song that won't get me copyrighted in every single country. But these photos are just screenshots from the video, because I wanted to show off that, and I think some of them are like very striking images. And like, especially if you see them as a set like this. Then we have a return to what is kind of the powder paint phase, but it's these like little smoke bomb. They're more like pellets that you set on fire for the smoke bomb. I wanted to do a kind of big shoot for this. These were taken like end of February, start of March 2018, where there was suddenly loads of snow in England. I wanted to go out and do this big shoot in the snow with the colours and probably a figure dressed in black contrast. But the pellets, they were very hard to light, so we ended up going back to my friend's house to work that out. And also I think it was so cold that she wasn't interested in doing a big idea. So we just have these, I mean, they're quite pretty, they're very simple. But again, not mad about it, but I'm not their biggest fan. I was expecting to make this video to give some constructive criticism of my past self and to reflect on how I progressed. But I'm basically just neutral about most things that I've done. Now we are getting into the end of first year of college, where I think I was doing a project in photography that was very loosely inspired on fairy tales. But this is also around the time I did get Photoshop, but I didn't know about the layer masks yet. That's in the frame, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know about layer masks. So when I erased something and kind of like messed up the edges, I just left it. So I didn't have the effort to fix it. There's a lot of these photos where if you zoom in closer you can see the errors, but I'm not going to do anything about. Yeah. So far the most important things I've learned in my photography career is camera raw and layer masks, which pretty much is what I'd recommend you knowing. So what we have here is the tail end, the bottom row of the tail end of my Fairy Tale Inside project for the first year of college. And then we have a lot of photos that I took over the summer that had nothing to do with college, but this is a really great time for me, where I was so in love with photography that I just took photos because I wanted to, not because I felt I had to. And that carries on for pretty much the entire summer. So they're up here, and I mean, a lot of these photos these ones I actually do dislike, especially the rainbow row and the row with the books, apart from this one with the paper on my face, which is probably one of my favourites I've taken, and something I want to redo one day. I want to take that concept and do it differently. I tried to do it at the start of uni last year, but it didn't go how I wanted. So yeah, this paper one, I think it's titled The Words, after the Christina Perri song of the same title, and that is something I'd like to redo one day. And there's also another one, this one with the dragon. It's also, I was going to say it's also not mad about it, but I remember I went out to a field to take this photo of me in my dress with my paper crown, holding nothing, with a scarf tied around my neck as a cape. And I went out to a field to take this, because I was still going out with photos at this time. And then I completely changed the background to a different field. which, I mean, I respect myself for my editing of that, but also I do not respect myself at all, because why? I was in a field. Why did I put it in a different field? I could have just took this at home if I was going to do that. But I think I knew I was going to do that when I went out, because that's a very me thing to do. But yeah, the thing I don't like about this photo is the smoke dragon. I think I was learning how to use a smoke brush, very inspired by Joel Robertson's work at the time. Also, yeah, my inspiration for most of these more surrealist conceptual self-portraits were a lot of British photographers. It was mostly Joel Robertson, Adam Bird and Holly Rose Stones, who I still love to this day. I don't like, the dragon's very sloppy for the outlining and the smoke, and it's an idea that I still like, but I'd like to redo this slightly differently, an improvement. Should I just do a project where I remake my old photos? Because I've seen a lot of people on YouTube like trying to recreate different people's Instagram photos and things like that, like celebrities, but I'd like to do this myself. So I've done very similar concepts and posted them again. I think there's a little highlight somewhere on my Instagram about comparing these, but I'd like to do it with a more conscious effort of saying this is something I'm going to recreate instead of just accidentally having these parallels. Then we have the square photography, which is where this is the earliest work I have on my website. This is from second year of college, so late 2018 onwards. And this is where I think I really started to take pride in my work. I lost a bit the love I had over the summer when I was just taking photos for the sake of taking photos, but I have a lot more refined ideas, I believe, in my opinion. Like, I went out with a plan instead of just, I went out a lot just like, hey, I'm going to take my tripod and my camera, we're going to take some photos. Also, I feel like it's obvious, but I had a shutter thing at this time, which is why I moved on to full body shots and pretty much almost exclusively full body shots. So yeah, a lot of these works I went out and I took with the concept in mind, and these are on my website, so I don't, as usual, I don't dislike them. But I think some of them are very dated, like especially this picture with the mirror, where you like replace the mirror with the thing behind you. Like, that is such an overdone idea. I do like it, but it's such an, so many people have done this before. And I think this was where I did a lot more experimenting with my photography. Like, excuse me, this one of my friends that was kind of in the middle, the very blue one with the Patronus and Harry Potter, which was very different from what I was doing, but I loved it. It's probably, I was going to say it's probably one of my favourite photos. I think it's the most challenging one for me to edit, which gives me a lot of pride towards it. As usual, there's some that I would probably redo, or not redo, like this one with the cloud. I still do really love this photo. We went to an abandoned, is it a hotel or a motel? But we went out, and this location, I think it's very reminiscent of Taylor Swift's Clean, you know, the idea of going to a house and building it all up, and not building it all up, and blocking it all up, but then punching a hole in the roof because the storm's coming and things like that. So this image, I think I tried to match like two separate concepts together, and visually it kind of works, but I don't think it tells any kind of story, or I don't think it represents what I was probably trying to do with these images, which I think was taking a bunch of photos on this location. Yeah, I think I went out having no idea. I thought I'll take some photos and I'll use them someday. And I think the lack of direction is kind of visible in the image. So I think I'll probably take the cloud concept and redo that some other time. I think I've lost my interest in abandoned buildings. There's also a time at the end of GCSEs where there was an abandoned house near where I live, and pretty much everyone went out to take photos in this abandoned house, just because the direct location, not because it adds anything to the image, it was just like the joy of being a teenager and being in this house that's falling apart. It was that kind of thing. And also, this photo with the water, I originally took this January 2018. I edited it before I had Photoshop. I created something and I didn't like it, so I put it away for a while. And I came back in December 2018 and made this, which if you see, I think there might be a progress thing on one of my highlights of this image like a full year later. And to me, I was like very proud of how I developed my editing skills in that time. And this is an image I'm still very proud of. It was very difficult for me to do. I watched a lot of tutorials from Brooke Shading, I think, on how to actually recreate this look. And this is the image that I've learned the most from in terms of editing, and also in terms of you can take this photo. It might not be good at the time, but it will be good someday. Okay, and what we're moving on to now isn't really reacting to my old photography, it's more, it's still pre-uni, so I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to stop when we get to my uni times. This was for the project for our exam, where you have like a bunch of suggested titles, you pick one and you do your project after that title. I chose Masterpiece because when I saw it, there weren't very many good options for this year, but I saw a Masterpiece and it instantly just like sparked all these visuals of like Renaissance paintings and those classic masterpieces. And I instantly knew that I wanted to go and recreate some paintings, which I would really love to do again. And this is also the start of where I try to use texture in my images, specifically in oil paint texture, to try and give them this very artistic style, and also to make them look more like paintings. And that's something I still do. I use the same like 3 textures as overlays. So on the bottom, like these 2 blue ones on the bottom are kind of recreations of Ophelia. I like the one on the left more of me standing. This is also the start of me using like bed sheets as costumes. And these are also, this entire set are pretty much those I do still love a lot. But like, I like the one of me standing up more, but it doesn't really have much of an Ophelia vibe. But the one of me underwater was also very technically challenging for me. I didn't know how to use layer masks at this point. And also it's something that I'd really love to do again in my newer, like darker, more refined style. And then we have my pride and joy, which is Icarus. And the original painting is probably one of my favourite paintings of all time. And this photo, I think it's the first one where I've actually tried to put 2 people together, even if the 2 people are still me and me. But this is probably one of my favourite photos I've done, just for the visual of it and for the technical challenge of it. And I still love this so much, and it's also such pretty colours and the texture really comes through, and there's a lot of things I'm proud of in this one. But as always, I'd love to do this again, because now that I've done it, I know how to do it. So I think it'll be so much easier for me to do this and focus on creating something beautiful instead of like stressing that it has to be right, because I can now do it right. Let's make it prettier. So we have the masterpiece images, which were taken. When were these taken? These were taken from like the first 6 months of 2019. Yeah, so the second half of my second year of college. And I think this is a very defining moment in why I wanted to take my work style-wise and aesthetically. I very much wanted to eventually look at an oil painting. I knew I was going to be stuck. Stuck sounds like a bad thing, but I knew I was set on doing self-portraits, and I wanted to have a lot of kind of historical, like masterpiece references. And then we move on to, I think pretty much the only photos I took over that summer were from, my friend was performing at the Glastonbury Festival, which is a more local little music and arts festival in Devon. And she was performing. She is the one on the bottom left with like the prettiest smile I've ever seen, and she was there. And I went to take some photos of her and also of this girl with the red hair who is Emily Magpie, and I love her music, you should definitely check her out. But these are the only photos I took over that summer. I was taking a break to get my inspiration back before uni. So this is where this ends of my old photos. But I got a new camera for these. This was the first time I used my new camera, and it was also the first time I was shooting like concert photos. So this middle row was shot in like a very concert scenario. It was in a closed location with low lighting and only had the stage lights on. And this was the biggest challenge I've had photographically ever. And I've shot concerts since this, so this was like the first proper learning experience I had in that kind of situation. These photos I would like to thank specifically Kate Graham from Sound Launch, who invited me to come take the photos, and for this opportunity which really helped me like confirm my love for music photography. And I'm so glad that this was a learning experience and part of a continuous learning curve before I went and actually started taking photos for concerts. And I think that's all I have to say about this. So summary of reviewing my old photos. Not bad, don't hate them, but also I'm so glad that these were the foundations of what I can do now. And that is all I had to say, and now I'm going to plan how I can remake all my old photos. So thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.